Hello, my name is Magnus Petersen. In this demonstration, we want to answer the question whether we should make a share buyback or some alternative investment. This could be the acquisition of another company or the construction of a new factory. So we start with the data for the company, and here we have the number of shares outstanding, and we set that to 1 million in this example. And the price per share is set to $50. So the total market value of all the company shares is $50 million. Let's say we want to use $5 million either for a share buyback or some alternative investment. The intrinsic value of the company before either making a share buyback or the investment is the excess cash that can be paid out as dividends now, plus the present value of future earnings that can be paid out as dividends in the future. Because the future earnings are unknown, the intrinsic value is also unknown, so we will make an estimate and say that in this example, the intrinsic value is $70 million, which is higher than the market cap of only $50 million. Because there are 1 million shares outstanding, it gives an intrinsic value per share of $70. Let's say that we make a share buyback for $5 million. Then the intrinsic value per share after the buyback is $72.22. And this is 3.2% more than the intrinsic value before the share buyback, which was only $70. Now let's say we make an investment instead of the share buyback, and we also spent $5 million on the investment, and the return on the investment, that is the present value of the future profits or earnings from that investment, or the future returns on that investment, is assumed to be $6 million. So we pay $5 million for the investment, and the present value of the return on that investment is $6 million. Then the value per share is $71, which is 1.4% more than the $70 per share before we made the investment. This gain of 1.4% with the investment is much lower than the gain of 3.2% when we made the share buyback. This number here basically just compares the two gains. It takes a value per share after the investment and divides it by the value per share after the buyback. And what we get is minus 1.7%. So when this is negative, it means that the share buyback was better. And when it is positive, it means that the investment was better. This is called the equilibrium share price, and it is $59.17. So let us go up here and try and type 59.17. And what we get now is that the gain with the share buyback is 1.4% and the gain with the investment is 1.4%. So it doesn't matter whether we make the investment or the share buyback. The value to the long-term shareholders of the company is the same. Let's try a share price that is higher than the equilibrium, let's say $65. Now the share buyback only increases value by 0.6%, while the investment still increases value by 1.4%. So now the share buyback is worth less than the investment. Let's try and take this further. Let's say the share price is $80, and this is higher than the intrinsic value, which is only $70 per share. So now the value with the share buyback causes a loss of 1%, and the investment still has a gain of 1.4%. Let's take the share price back to $50. And because this is much less than the intrinsic value per share, the gain per share is 3.2% from making the share buyback. Now let's look at the other equilibrium for the return on the investment. So it is about $7.2 million. And we can type it in here. 7, like so. And now we have that the share buyback is worth just as much as the investment. So let's say that the return on the investment was actually 8 million. So it is higher than the equilibrium. And now the intrinsic value is increased 4.3% from making the investment, while the share buyback only increases value 3.2%. Let's try a lower value for the return on the investment. So let's say 6 again, and then the gain is back to 1.4%. So the equilibrium share price tells us that if we assume a certain intrinsic value for the company and a certain return on investment, then the share buyback is better than the investment whenever the share price is less than this equilibrium. And similarly, if we assume a certain intrinsic value for the company and a certain share price, then the return on the investment must be greater than the equilibrium if the investment is to be better than the share buyback. You can download this spreadsheet by clicking on the link below the video.